Hi, everybody. My name is Reba Buhr. Thank you so much, AJ, for having me on your show. I'm very flattered that I get to talk to you about voice acting and Misty in Pokemon Masters. So I primarily work in dubbing, animation, video games, and audiobook narration. When I started acting, I initially wanted to be in musical theater. I love musicals so much. So when I went to college, I studied theater and vocal performance. So I was doing a lot of opera, classical singing. I was a soprano. I say was because I almost never sing anymore, unfortunately. I really miss it. As a voice actor, you have heard me as LLENN/Karen in Sword Art Online Alternative Gun Gale Online, as Rose and Juleka in Miraculous Ladybug, as Mine in Ascendance of a Bookworm, Nikaido in Dorohedoro, as Catalea in Violet Evergarden, Bobby Blobby in Power Players, which is on Cartoon Network, and Elder Scrolls Online, I played Princess Sivana, which was in a recent update. So those are some of them, but as anybody who knows dubbing knows, we, us dubbing actors, work a lot. Our list of characters is very long. How did I start getting into voice acting? I was going to college, studying to hopefully go to New York and pursue a career on Broadway. And I had a Tai Chi teacher named Ezra Weiss, who also happens to be a dubbing director. So when he's not teaching college students how to breathe and push chi around, he is directing animation and other things. So he thought I had potential to be good at voice acting and invited me to come in and play a little role in a movie he was working on. And that was a Winx movie, if you're familiar with the Winx. I think they just had a new TV show come out on Netflix, a live action show. So maybe the franchise is maybe a little better known now than it was then. So I went in and I played a character named Stormy, who is one of the Tricks, who's like one of the evil fairies. And I didn't know voice acting was a career. I didn't know it was an option. It was fun. It paid, which in college, getting paid anything is like amazing. So I thought, okay, this not only is way more lucrative than theater, which is not a very lucrative job, but I mean, it just fills your soul. So definitely, absolutely a worthy career pursuit. But voice acting kind of drew on all those same theater skills that I'd been training. I was able to use broad characters that you don't usually get to play on screen and manipulate my voice and play boys and girls, humans and creatures. And I thought, this is maybe actually what I want to do. So I started taking classes and investing in a little bit of equipment to get going with it. And just the more I learned, the more I liked it. And the more success I had at it, the more I invested in it. And that eventually turned into a career. My best and worst voice acting jobs. Well, my best voice acting jobs are any jobs where I get to really play. So sometimes when you're dubbing, you don't get to step outside the box too much because you're confined to the exact movements of the mouth of the character on screen that's already been animated. So I will have to say I do prefer the scenario where you are laying down the lines first before they animate to it, and you could maybe make something up and go a little crazy, do something they weren't expecting, and then they say, I love that, let's keep it. That's when you feel like a real artist. Worst voice acting jobs. Well, that's a little hard to talk about because you can't get too specific if something really made you mad. But any time when you aren't respected in any professional situation, maybe you didn't get paid the way you thought you would, or people weren't respectful of your time, things like that. I think it's just like any other career. But being behind the mic is generally a very pleasant place to be. My dream is to be a series regular in a cartoon on one of the big networks, like Disney Channel or Nickelodeon, something that kids remember for the rest of their lives. Like, Animaniacs, I grew up with that. I would love to be a big character on one of those shows. So that's the star I'm going to keep reaching for. So it's Pokemon's 25th anniversary, which means I'm definitely older than 25 because I remember when Pokemon came out and it was such a big deal. We had a lot of cards that my brother and I collected, and I never learned how to play any game with the cards, but we would just look at them and feel rich because we had a holographic Dark Charizard. But I didn't really know what that meant, and I never knew what happened to that card because that was my retirement plan, man. Where did that thing go? And I remember the show, and Misty was like a main character on the show. So when Bang Zoom told me that I'd been cast as Misty in Pokemon Masters, I thought it was like a mistake. How can that be? Isn't there somebody who's famous who's been doing the voice of Misty for ages who needs to do this part? But as sometimes happens in all sorts of properties, sometimes even though one person is playing the part for most things in that property, like maybe all the TV show related stuff and all the toys, sometimes they'll use somebody else for the video game just because all of those things are made by different companies usually, and they spread it out a bit. So I was very flattered to become one of the women who has been able to lend her voice to that character. Okay, so Bang Zoom gave me the part of Misty. That was totally surprising. And I didn't have to audition. They just cast me as it, which is one of the nice things about being a voice actor is once you work in the community, sometimes it's like they already know your work so well. They already have their team of people that they often use, and they're just taking that information to do the casting rather than going through a big audition process. So I got to my session. There was a representative from Pokemon there, which is up in Seattle, which is where I'm from. So that was exciting to connect with them over the fact that we have the same homeland. And I felt a little nervous, and I don't usually feel nervous because I thought, this is a big thing to step into. When I think of the original anime that was playing when I was a little kid, Ash was the main human protagonist, but Misty was the second one. There really weren't that many gym leaders back then. I feel like there were only like 4 or 5. So that was just flattering. We don't do a lot of lines in the game. It's mostly dialogue that, scrolls on the screen. You pretty rarely hear us talk. So the session itself didn't take very long, maybe an hour, just to get those few lines out. There is a big difference between voicing video game characters and voicing characters for animation because the process they use to make those two things is quite different. When you're doing a piece of animation, you're working on a scene. They have the whole story all there in a row, and you can just do your lines one after the other. If you're really lucky, you might even have the other character there to play off of. So it's like acting in other scenarios. With a video game, the way they put the lines into the game, everything's very piecemeal because it has to be programmed as such that I can click on this thing and she's going to say that, and then you don't know what I'm going to click on next. There's a million permutations of sequences of different lines, so every line's kind of in its own little vacuum, which means you have a lot more work to do as the voice actor to bring a sense of life and continuation to those lines because you're probably just saying, sure, you can follow me over here, without anybody saying anything before, like, can you show me where the gym is? The goal with my portrayal of Misty was not to do a voice match for any of the other voice actresses who have played her, but rather to hold true to the general pieces of her personality. So she's determined and independent and enthusiastic and positive, and a little bubbly. So she says things like,
Time to dive in! Let's go!
and that's mostly me being enthusiastic and bubbly and positive and all those other things. Now, if there are no restrictions whatsoever and I get to play any parts in the Pokemon franchise, I want to do just some Pokemon. I've gotten to play a human. Now I want to play a character. You know, something that talks like this, or
Something that talks like this. Or something that talks like this.
I just haven't been given the opportunity yet, but I'm ready. Well, thank you so much, AJ, for including me. I can't wait to see the images of all the Misty cosplayers that I know that you're also going to be including. It's a pleasure to be asked. I certainly do love talking about my process and the business that I am so passionate about and so grateful to be a part of. So, all the best to you, and thanks to all of the fans of Pokemon Masters and every other project that we voice actors participate in. We so appreciate you. Okay, bye-bye.